Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we are studying this book called The Perfection of Yoga, and we begin by reading some words written by the publishers. So they call it the Yoga of Divine Love. A world-renowned yoga master, here is Srila Prabhupada, cut through the commercialism that now clouds the real meaning of yoga. So although Prabhupada spoke this in the late 60s, throughout 70s, uh, yoga then was very much commercialized. In fact, yoga is still commercialized now. Many people create yoga clubs, yoga societies, and pitch a method of spiritual realization through yoga, which actually may not be yoga, right? So that's why it's called the perfection of yoga. What is real yoga, and how can one get the fruit of yoga? One should know what it is. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada explains that beyond the postures and exercises, the ancient teachings of yoga aim at lasting, loving union with the Supreme. These are real teachings of the yogas. So there are 8 chapters that we'll go through 8 sessions. This is the first session. Yoga as rejected by Arjuna. So this is amazing. The first, it begins at what yoga is not. All right. So let us see chapter 1. Yoga as rejected by Arjuna. There have been many yoga systems popularized in the Western world, especially in this century, but none of them have actually taught the perfection of yoga. In Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, teaches Arjuna directly the perfection of yoga. If we actually want to participate in the perfection of the yoga system, in Bhagavad Gita, we'll find the authoritative statements of the Supreme Person. So here's Prabhupada's pitching that if someone really wants to practice real yoga, then one should know what the perfection of the yoga is. Where is the yoga leading you to? It is certainly remarkable that the perfection of yoga was taught in the middle of a battlefield. Because generally when you see yoga studios, they want, wooden flooring, air-conditioned room, soundproof room. And here's a battlefield where there's just clashes and clumps of metal and battle going on. And there yoga is mentioned. So let's see what the perfection is. It was taught to Arjuna, the warrior. He was not a yoga guru. Just before Arjuna was to engage in a fratricidal battle between brothers, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Out of sentiment, Arjuna was thinking, why should I fight against my own kinsmen? That reluctance to fight was due to Arjuna's illusion. Just to eradicate that illusion, Sri Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to him. One can just imagine how little time must have elapsed while Bhagavad Gita was being spoken. All the warriors on both sides were poised to fight. So there was very little time indeed. At the utmost, 1 hour. So here Prabhupada is saying like within less than an hour. Now I not find any like exact reference, but a lot of scholars, they say that entire Bhagavad Gita was spoken in 45 minutes to 48 minutes. Right? And if you were to recite all the 700 verses back to back, it will take us 2 hours. All the 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita. But it said that Krishna spoke, Arjuna understood in 45, 48 minutes, a muhurta. So anyways, Prabhupada here writes within that less than an hour. The whole Bhagavad Gita was discussed and Sri Krishna set forth the perfection of all yoga systems to his friend Arjuna. At the end of the great discourse, Arjuna set aside his misgivings and fought. He did what Krishna wanted him to do. However, within the discourse, when Arjuna heard the explanation of the meditational system of yoga, which is predominantly in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, how to sit down, how to keep the body straight, how to keep the eyes half closed, and how to gaze at the tip of the nose without diverting one's attention, all this being conducted in a secluded place, alone. After hearing all these difficult rules, what did Arjuna reply? Yo yam yogastvaya prokta samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvad sthitim stiram. O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and undurable to me. Is what is saying, 5,000 years ago. For the mind is restless and unsteady. This is important, Prabhupada says. We must always remember that we are in the material circumstance wherein at every moment our mind is subject to agitation. Actually, we are not in a very comfortable situation. We are always thinking. that by changing our situation, we will overcome our mental agitation. And we are always thinking that when we reach a certain point, all mental agitations will disappear. So that's not true. That's why you see sometimes, people like to migrate. They move from one country to another, one place to another, one job to another, one life to another. Why? It's because we think that, I need to just adjust my material situation. I'll be happy. Maybe not in this country, maybe in another country. Maybe not in this company, maybe in another company. Maybe not in this city, maybe in another city. Maybe not this career option, maybe another career option. So we're just trying to adjust our material situation, but that will never make us happy. But it is the nature of the material world that we cannot be free from anxiety. So one should accept this and realize this. Our dilemma is that we are always trying to make a solution to our problems. But this universe is so designed that these solutions never come. Isn't it amazing what Prabhupada is saying? So there's no point in trying to change our situation. Therefore, there's a shloka that comes in 10th canto where Brahmaji says, Sthane sthita. Staying in your own place, doing your own thing, just take up to bhakti. You cannot do any artificial gymnastics, right? Nothing is going to change. So, not being a cheater, being very frank and open. Arjuna tells Krishna. So kind of like Prabhupada is telling that, other people are like cheaters. But Arjuna is not a cheater. He doesn't want to perform this heavy duty yoga because he said there's no point. The mind is so restless. That the system of yoga which he has described is not possible for him to execute. In speaking to Krishna, it is significant that Arjuna addresses him as Madhusudana, indicating that the Lord is the killer of the demon Madhu. So this story of Krishna killing the Madhu demon actually is not Krishna. It's one of the forms of Vishnu Hayagriva. So in the beginning of creation, when Lord Vishnu was meditating, from his ears came out some wax, some bad stuff, wax came out from the ears. And that formed two demons, Madhu and Kaitab. Madhu is like intoxication. Kaitaba means cheating. So these two principles came out, these two personalities came out, and they caused a lot of havoc. Firstly, they stole the Vedas. They stole the Vedas from Brahma. And Brahma was devastated. Brahma went to Lord Vishnu, and Vishnu took a form of Hayagriva, the half man, half horse incarnation, and he killed this Madhu Kaitaba demon. And therefore, the Lord is known as Madhusudana, the killer of the Madhu demon. So this Madhu demon represents ignorance, represents attachment, represents aversion, and this destroys and disturbs our mind, and we have to kill it, right? So the Lord's mercy, we kill this demon in the mind. It is notable that God's names are innumerable, for he is often named according to his activities. Indeed, God has innumerable names because he has innumerable activities. Like Krishna's name is Govardhana Dhari, right? He is also called Nanda Lala. In relation to the activities and persons he has a relationship with. We are only parts of God, and we cannot even remember how many activities we have engaged in from our childhood to the present. Can you remember what all things we have done? We can't. The eternal God is unlimited, and since his activities are also unlimited, he has unlimited names, of which Krishna is the chief. Then why is Arjuna addressing him as Madhusudana when, being Krishna's friend, he could have addressed him directly as Krishna, right? So why did he use the word Madhusudana? So Prabhupada says, the answer is that Arjuna considers his mind to be like a great demon. Not only Arjuna, all of us. Such as the demon Madhu. If it were possible for Krishna to kill the demon called the mind, then Arjuna will be able to attain the perfection of yoga, right? So actually, the perfection in life all depends on our mind. Our mind can be the greatest enemy. It can be the greatest friend also. If we learn to purify the mind, that's why we are chanting Hare Krishna, to purify the mind. My mind is much stronger than this demon Madhu. Arjuna is saying, please, if you could kill him, then it will be possible for me to execute this yoga system. Even the mind of a great man like Arjuna is always agitated. Imagine 5,000 years ago, what then today, right? Like they did a study where they show that people had attention span of around 60 minutes in the earlier times. And then universities came up and then they reduced it to 50 minutes. And then they, in the last 10, 15 years, they say half an hour. And in the last 5 years, they say, no, 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 only 20 minutes. Right? So every 20 minutes, you have to change the activity now. So Arjuna himself says, Chanchalam himana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayur eva sudushkaram. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, it seems to me more difficult than controlling the wind. So here Arjuna says something very sounds impossible. He's saying controlling mind is more difficult than controlling the wind. It is indeed a fact that the mind is always telling us to go here, to go there, to do this, to do that. It is always telling us which way to turn. Thus, the sum and substance of yoga system is to control the agitated mind. In the meditational yoga system, the mind is controlled by focusing on the super soul. That is the whole purpose of yoga, right? Where one actually keeps all the senses attached to focusing on God. But Arjuna says that controlling the mind is more difficult than stopping the wind from blowing. One can imagine a man stretching out his arms trying to stop a hurricane. Are we to assume that Arjuna is simply not sufficiently qualified to control his mind? The actual fact is that we cannot begin to understand the immense qualifications of Arjuna. So here, Prabhupada is taking the side of Arjuna. Don't think that Arjuna is not a capable, important person, right? He was a personal associate of the Lord. After all, he was a personal friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is a highly elevated position and is one that cannot be attained by without great qualifications. So Krishna also tells to Arjuna, Bhakto sime sakha cheti, you are my devotee and as well as my friend. So he only got this position because he's a Nitya Parshad. Every yuga, Arjuna again appears with the Lord to do this Leela. In addition to this, Arjuna was renowned as a great warrior and administrator. He was such an intelligent man, he could understand Bhagavad Gita within 1 hour. Whereas at the present moment, great scholars cannot even understand it in the course of a lifetime. That's the truth. That so many people are there and they're studying and reading Bhagavad Gita, they're getting wrong conclusions, they're not able to understand. So, but Arjuna could immediately understand. Yet Arjuna was thinking that controlling the mind was simply not possible for him. Are we then to assume that it was impossible for Arjuna in a more are we then to assume that what was impossible for Arjuna in a more advanced age is possible for us in this degenerate age? Right? When Arjuna could not do it, why here we are thinking that I can do the same system of yoga and I'll control my mind? We should not for a moment think that we are in Arjuna's category. We are 1,000 times inferior. Moreover, there is no record of Arjuna having executed yoga system at any time. Yet Arjuna was praised by Krishna as the only man worthy of understanding Gita. Now, after reading all this, one may think, that why Srila Prabhupada so against yoga? Why Srila Prabhupada wants to no, we don't want to be labeled as a yogi. Because we have to understand at that time in US, maybe even now, yoga was such a big thing. There was the big yoga schools in New York, Manhattan, Los Angeles. And people would come to Prabhupada and ask, are you teaching yoga? No, we don't want philosophy. We want yoga. That, pressing your nose and doing different positions. Prabhupada saying, what is this? They're coming after is yoga, yoga, yoga. But factually, they just want boga. They just want to enjoy. What was Arjuna's great qualification? Sri Krishna says, you are my devotee. You are my dear friend. Bhakto sime sakha cheti. Despite this qualification, Arjuna refused to execute the meditational yoga system described by Sri Krishna. What then are we to conclude? Are we to despair the mind's ever being controlled? Should we say that, the mind can never be controlled? No, it can be controlled. And the process is Krishna consciousness. The mind must be fixed always in Krishna. Insofar as the mind is absorbed in Krishna, it has attained the perfection of yoga. So here Prabhupada is saying, Krishna consciousness is the ultimate perfection of yoga, when one's mind is constantly thinking about Krishna. Now, when we turn to Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, we find Sukadev Goswami telling Maharaj Parikshit that in the golden age, the Satya Yuga, people were living for 100,000 years. And at the time when advanced living entities lived for such lengths of time, it was possible to execute the meditational system of yoga. But what was achieved in the Satya Yuga by this meditational process, and in the following Yuga, the Treta Yuga, by offering great sacrifices, and in the next Yuga, the Dwapar Yuga, by temple worship, would be achieved at the present time in this Kali Yuga simply by chanting the names of God, Hari Kirtana, Hare Krishna. So this is a shloka that comes in the 12th canto, 3rd chapter, 52nd verse. कृतयध्यायतो विष्णुं त्रेतायं यजतो मकाय द्वापरे परिचार्यायं कलौ तद् कीर्तनात्. Satyuga's method of Yuga Dharma, the religion of the age, was meditation unto Lord. In Treta Yuga, the method was doing great big sacrifices. In Dwapar Yuga, the method was temple worship, paricharyayam. And in Kali Yuga, it's only by Hari Kirtan. So from authoritative sources, we learn that this chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the embodiment of the perfection of yoga for this age. So if someone wants to do yoga in the traditional sense, probably they need to go to Satya Yuga. Right? Kali Yuga, chanting Hare Krishna is the yoga. Today we have great difficulties living for 50 or 60 years. A man may live at most 80 or 100 years. In addition, these brief years are always fraught with anxiety, with difficulties due to circumstances of war, pestilence, famine, and so many disturbances. So just growing old and living through the age, it's not much. It's still very tough. Like there are many people who recently, some old man who passed away this year or last year. And people were saying that he survived COVID, he did all these things just to pass away now. So what's the point, even growing, living so long, they have to go through so many difficulties. We are also not very intelligent, and at the same time, we are unfortunate. These are the characteristics of a man living in Kali Yuga, the degraded age. So these are the qualities given in the first canto, first chapter, 10th verse. Prayenalpayusa shabdya kalau asmin yuge jana manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hi upadrita. Right? People in this iron age of Kali are always short-lived. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So, properly speaking, we can never attain success in this meditational yoga system described by Krishna. At the utmost, we can only gratify our personal whims by some pseudo-adaptation of the system. Thus, people are paying money to attend some classes in gymnastics, exercises, deep breathing, and they are happy if they think they can lengthen their lifetime by a few years or enjoy better sex life. A lot of people go to yoga to keep fit, to live long, just so they can enjoy physical relationships even more, which is against the whole purpose of yoga. But we must understand that this is not the actual yoga system. In this age, the meditational system cannot be properly executed. Instead, all the perfections of that system can be realized through Bhakti Yoga, the sublime process of Krishna consciousness, specifically Mantra Yoga, the glorification of Sri Krishna through the chanting of Hare Krishna. That is recommended in the Vedic scriptures and is introduced by great authorities like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Indeed, the Bhagavad Gita proclaims that the Mahatmas, the great souls, are always chanting the glories of the Lord. Oh, this is interesting. So where does this comes from? 9th chapter, 13th verse, where Krishna here mentions Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashrita vajanti ananta ananya manaso jnatva bhutabhyam avyayam. The Mahatmas, the great souls, they, always take shelter of the Lord and always engaged in doing bhajan. Right? What else? Next verse, 9:14 shows. Satatam kirtayanto mam. So here's where Prabhupada says the Mahatmas are always engaged in Satatam kirtayanto mam. Yatantaschadrda vrita. They're always endeavoring with great faith. Namaschantascha mam bhaktya. They're always offering their obeisances. Nitya yukta ubhasate. In that way, they're engaged. If one wants to be a Mahatma in terms of the Vedic literature, in terms of Bhagavad Gita, and in terms of great authorities, then one has to adopt this process of Krishna consciousness and of chanting Hare Krishna. But if we are content on making a show of meditation by sitting very straight in lotus position and going into trance like some sort of performer, then that is a different thing. Right? If you want to be cheated, we can become cheated. But we should understand that such show bottle performance have nothing to do with the actual perfection of yoga. The material disease cannot be cured by artificial medicine, right? We have to take the real cure straight from Krishna. So short chapter, Prabhupada gives the introduction, what is actually this yoga system about? And we can see, very interestingly that Arjuna himself says that I cannot do this yoga system. If Arjuna can't, then what more we? This system was actually meant for the people in Satya Yuga. So like this, we complete this chapter and we will see further chapters in future. Hare Krishna.